And if you want to get seconds, go get seconds. I think there's plenty. And please enjoy your meal as we continue in the meeting. My name is Scott Whitman. I am the current chair of the Overseer Board, and it is my job to convene this meeting. So as we begin, I'd like to welcome you to the meeting and appreciate your presence here. I know this is taking a little bit out of this sunny day for you, but this is a great day, as Ben was saying, one of our second or first favorite days of the season as we look ahead. And it was exciting to hear about, as Ben was preaching today, the Kingdom Impact Ministry Plan. Again, I love reviewing that. I love hearing about what it is we're doing. And this meeting is the time each year where we have spent some time as an Overseer Board and leadership team thinking about that ministry plan, thinking about what God has put on our plates for this coming year. And this meeting is the presentation of those ideas and the objectives and the idea for the ministry. And we present the budget that reflects those goals. So as members, you get to assess that plan and ask any questions you may still have and vote on it at the end of the meeting. As we get started, though, part of my job is to present to you and the rest of the Overseer Board. And we'll show you a photo of, there we go, somewhere in there, of the Overseer Board. There they are. All right, so that is how this is the current collection of the ministry, of the Overseer team. That's how you typically see us when we're presented to the church. But I wanted you to see just a quick overview. Andy, I'm going to fly through these slides, so be ready, of who this team is, and let you know a little bit more about us. And I encourage you to, if you haven't met the rest of the team, make sure you meet them. So Andy, next slide as we go through. Steve Willis and his wife Holly. And Steve is in his, hopefully beginning his third term on the board, and is now the vice chair of the board. Heidi Foy and her husband Dave and their family, they like being out on the beach with their family. Okay, the next slide. I'm going to ask you to just read things as we fly through. That's me and my wife Terry. And we like being out in the outdoors. And Jeff Ekstrand and his wife Erin, their two boys, they like fishing, and secondly, fishing. If you know Jeff, that's so true. Next slide. Ben Anderson and his wife Bert and their kids. Ben is currently at a Fast Pitch softball tournament. He's helping coach. They are, I think, in the championship round. Very exciting stuff. And John Schrupp and his wife Melissa and their two lovely girls. And Richard Cook. Richard and his lovely wife Darlene. And Pastor Ben and his wife Terry. So that is our Overseer Board. Now, this year, there are three of us that are up for renewal in our terms, and it is according to the bylaws of the church organization that the members vote on the renewal of terms or any new slate of overseers that are presented to the church. And it is Heidi Foy, myself, and Steve Willis. And there'll be on the ballot that you've received, there'll be a vote of that at the end of the meeting. And the overseers our job is to steward the resources of the church, the business of the church itself, and also to help set the table, as we like to say, for the ministry and the Kingdom Impact Plan, to help our team of staff and volunteer leaders equip the body for the work of the church, and that is our role. One of the other things we get to do is to welcome new members into the church, and we'd like to do that at this time. New members are... It's an interesting, unique relationship. As Pastor Ben was saying, we are all members of the body of Christ. We have a covenant with Christ, and we are part of the church universal, the Big C church. When we become members of Northridge Fellowship, we have a covenant relationship with each other. And this particular body and the mission that this God has given this particular church. So we want to acknowledge these folks. Some folks have been around a long time and have just become members, and some folks are new to us. Amy Belchak, Sharon and Tim Chamberlain, Sarah and Scott Cook, Brett and Amy Gertis. And if I say your name wrong, I apologize. If you're here, wave and acknowledge. We want to make sure, hi. We want to make sure we are acknowledging you folks that you're here today. Kathy Glenn, Jennifer, how do you pronounce that? Henker, okay. Adam and Celeste Lunderby, Leslie Meehy, Gary and Natalie Morrison, Ed and Sue Nattison, is that how we say that? All right. Alden Peterson, Calvin and Patience Saylor, I know they're here. Yes. Paul Schoolmeisters and Julie Worthington. So join me in welcoming these new members. Thank you. So as we were saying, Ben, give you a heads up that we're going to be moving into this next part right now. So he gets to finish shoving things in his mouth. As I said, God is good. We are excited about what's coming this season. Ben is going to take a few moments to review what we've just accomplished in this past year and what God has done here at Northridge. So welcome, Pastor Ben. Thank you.
Hi. Awesome. He said that just as I shoved a big wad of potato chips in my mouth.
I didn't give you enough of a warning,
Yeah.
sorry.
Hey, 2 sermons. I'm hungry. So, all right. Yeah, I mean, it was, I don't know. How can you say it wasn't a great year after last week's Celebration Sunday and everything that we experienced, right? You know, just praise God for that. Yes. It's just at so many levels in the ministry that was, you know, that took place. And I just want to thank so many of you who fought the good fight, you know, who engaged, who jumped in, you know, who at the last minute often, you know, went, oh no, we need help. And, you know, and then just came in and you brought it and you did great ministry. And, you know, and one thing that's not in here, you know, is the funerals that we've done this year and the effect of those funerals. And I would just let you know, I don't know about you, but some of the conversations that I've had with people at those funerals and coming out of those funerals, and so much of that has come just from the nature of the ministry and the way that they were treated, you know, by you in doing what you did, in loving on those families in the time of their grief. And as you know, funerals are messy times, and grief is a messy thing, and sometimes not all the memories are happy or good memories. And this was a safe place. And so just thank you so much. That's just one thing. So you can flip to the next slide there, Andy. No, Andy just shoved more food on his plate than I asked him. So, you know, last week as we looked at the ministry goals, we had 2 basic ministry goals. One is just to keep that relentless focus on Jesus. You know, there's just so much going on in this world, so many things to get distracted with. And last year we just said, you know what, it's got to stay on Jesus. Are we moving people closer to Jesus? That's all that matters. And then the other is then to look at our ministries, and the key word for the year was maximize. How can we just maximize what we're doing? We didn't really feel like we needed to like reinvent the wheel, but that there's so many of the things that we're doing are just so right on, but they need to be maximized. And so this past year we had that idea of just maximizing for kingdom impact. And so, you know, we look at keeping the focus on Jesus. Next slide. You know, we just said, regardless of situations, circumstances, the world around us, we're going to keep that relentless focus on sharing the gospel and being a community of Christ followers that actually love God and express his love to others. And that's kind of what I was talking about with the funerals and stuff. It's just the power and the impact of the community. And the funerals are just one microcosm, one small area, you know, where we saw God really do some really, really cool things. Now, on the next slide, we kind of had that broken down, the maximizing your kingdom impact and loving God and growing our capacity to better handle the current reality. One of the things, we had some goals about maybe getting a worship intern and a few things like that. And you may ask, what happened with that? Well, we had the advertisement out, and we're looking, and honestly, we just did not get a good candidate, and so we didn't hire anybody. That's at the end of the day for the worship assistant position. Did I say that right?
Not the first time, because we did get an intern.
We got an intern, right? We got Isaiah, but we did get an intern. Let me get that right. This is what happens when I do this after a sermon. All right. So we did get an awesome intern. Is Isaiah here? Where are you, Isaiah? I just saw him. He's probably helping with the kids over in the other area. So yes, a worship assistant, which would have been more of a part-time position. So not the intern. Anyway, so that's on that. But we have worked really, really hard and really trying to make, especially the online experience. And one of the reasons for that is because one thing we know is that everybody that comes to Northridge attends online before they come. And so we want to create an experience that is as close to what they're going to experience when they get here, so that what they experience there has some continuity with what they experience here. And so that becomes a conduit for people to be able to really connect. So anyway, so moving on to the next one. Under love each other, to maximize the use of the building for our community, for kids and adults. And I got to tell you, I'm still curious, how many are involved in either or both of Miracle of Jesus at Christmas time or the Easter extravaganza? How many thought that was awesome? Yes. All right. That's just one example of the things that we were doing, taking advantage of the new Kids Club. I actually think we're going to be much more effective this year than we were last year, because I think we know what to do with the tool we have now that we have a year under our belt of ministry here. And one of the things that you're going to see in just a little bit is we have had a significant increase in Cove Kids, in the number of young families that are coming, which was the reason we put that on in the first place. So really, really exciting. Next slide. Under maximizing for kingdom impact of increasing our congregational awareness and engagement with our missions partners, we have a good start, a solid start of advocacy teams. One of the things that's really important, and we'll talk about this more in a minute, is that we have so many missionaries, but every one of them matter, and they all need to be supported. And we want to be a church that really supports our mission partners. And the advocacy teams is a strategy, and we've started it, and we're going to be developing that even more this year, and hopefully expanding that. But we got the start that we were looking for. And then launching an action team to help connect Northridgers with Make a Difference opportunities, and that is launched. We're there, we're getting started, we're starting to get some reps in, and we are building the process as starting to engage, for example, like the youth participation in one of the Mobile Hope outreaches, and growing in that. And our hope is, as we get our wheels moving on this and get momentum, we'll see more and more. And we have some goals with that in the coming year. Next slide. So facility. To upgrade our first impression and focus on the building exterior, to improve our landscaping and a maintenance plan. When you do as much construction and everything else that we've been doing over the last couple of years, it's messy. And, there's been a lot of times where, we've got done and the project got done over here, and it's like, oh, wow, it's going to be a while before that looks good again. And so we needed to put some action and intentionality in that. And we have formed a team to beautify the grounds. We have plans for a patio expansion on the other side of this wall back here, that patio that's there. There are plans that over the years to make that a little bigger and make that a really good gathering space outside. And we also have plans you're going to hear about more today about putting a playground in and having that so we can continue to attract young families and have something that's fun for kids. Accrue funds to prepare and update the parking lot. We'll talk about that in a minute, all right? We're at a very exciting place there. Let me just say that there'll be an opportunity to give, and what I'd like you to do is drive around the potholes and then donate whatever you would have put in for repairing your front end. All right, then just put that in. We'll have all the money that we need. So don't worry about it. All right. Looking forward, I'm much more excited about this. Looking forward, when we look at our mission field, how many people drove by new foundations and homes being built on your way here? Is it possible to drive to Northridge Fellowship without driving by new homes being built? All right, next slide. So when we put together, and look what's going on. Now, this is new addresses. This isn't necessarily new homes, but this is like new people into our community. So this is kind of the broader picture. All right, 7,000 new addresses. There are 7,000 people that moved into our kind of 5 zip code area in the last year. All right, that's just this year. And if you compare that to the previous 3 years, it was 11,000. Last year alone, it was 7,000. Okay, that's the turnover. One of the things that you know with turnover, when people are newer to the community, what are they looking for? They're looking for churches. They're looking for relationships. Life is up in the air. Things are turning, and they are more open. You are more open for change. Even if you aren't looking for a church, you are more open for a change if there's somebody that loves you. All right? So that's kind of what we're looking at in our community right now. And then when we look at it, thousands, we try to go on the city websites and kind of come up with a number of how many homes the cities are saying, and it's too confusing, and all their information is out of date. But I will say that when I went to the Corcoran website, and I added up all the homes of all the developments of what they're saying, I was approaching 1,000 homes. Just Corcoran. All right? It's crazy. And not only do we have homes being built, but in Rogers, how many apartment buildings are being built? It's crazy. There are thousands more families that are coming soon. Next slide. Our community is growing fast, and each new home, and that's the reason why I preached the sermon I preached today. Each new home is a family that we have an opportunity to reach with the love of Jesus. And here's the real truth. I want them to come to Northridge because I want them to know Jesus, but there's also part of me, like I keep saying, it doesn't matter on the other hand because I can't control the results, right? I can't control what people are going to do. But I can control, and we can control, will they get a warm welcome? Will they feel loved? We have a say in that. And so, next slide. We just have one driving focus for our ministry this year. We keep it really simple. Reach our growing community with the love of Jesus. That we want to make sure that everybody who's moving into our community experiences something. Next slide. We want to focus on families in new homes because we know those that are new are the most open to change and to something different. We want to make a persuasive invitation. And what does that mean? That means it's not about, hey, what sounds good to us? but that we understand who's coming in and we make an invitation that makes sense to them, that feels like love to them, that addresses what they see and what they feel, and that we're inviting them in a persuasive way to meet, know, and follow Jesus with us. We want to give a warm welcome all the way into the fellowship of the church. That when we are thinking about it, it's wonderful when somebody comes and visits, and we do a great job, and let's not grow slack in giving a warm welcome of greeting people that we don't know and making sure that they know that we know they're there and we're glad they're here. But it's not enough if it just stops on Sunday morning. It needs to be an invitation all the way into the fellowship. All right? And that's really important, and that we have that in our minds. It's not just, hey, I'm glad you're here, but I want to welcome you all the way in, okay? And to think about that. And then to do ministry in an excellent and a relevant way. That we just, we want to do the best that we possibly can with what we have. And that we will put in the effort this year to really make sure that it's excellent and relevant. And, because, what's the alternative to be sloppy and irrelevant? Well, who wants to go to that church? And I can tell you, I don't want to lead that church. So we want to do that. And then we want to share a simple gospel clearly and without distraction. Again, this is very similar to what we said before. We want to keep a simple gospel, a simple focus on Jesus Christ. We don't want to complicate things with a whole bunch of other stuff. It is about Jesus. It is about knowing him. It is about understanding his love, his sacrifice, his death, his resurrection, and what that means for them and what it means for us still as we are. So, in light of that big objective, we've kind of there's a whole bunch more goals that maybe are more specific in specific areas that staff members have, and maybe some other ministry leaders have. But these are the ones that I think are the most is kind of applicable for us in this moment, is that we want to create a more engaging live stream experience for the weekend services. There's still things that we can do. We need to continue to build the team. It would be really good to have a team of people that are running the video and people that can mix the audio so that the audio is of high quality. And we need to continue to build that team because that's such a big thing, such a big deal. To have 3 excellent, under Love God, I guess I forgot to say that, under our Love God goals, to have 3 excellent worship nights for families. And we want to begin to maybe expand this into our children's and our youth areas where there's some special worship times, because we really want to disciple and grow our kids in this area of worship. And what's that? Oh, that was my granddaughter. Okay, sorry. I thought it was you, Jeremy, and I thought you went. I was like, why did you do that? I don't know. Okay, that was my granddaughter that did that. All right, we're good. All right, develop new youth leaders. There's always an ebb and a flow, and Andy's looking at it and saying that there's some real potential here for developing some new youth leaders and team members that could be involved both Wednesday and Sunday. Because remember, one of the things in the Kingdom Impact Ministry Plan is that our children and our youth are fully integrated into the life of the church. We are not waiting for our children and youth to become part of the church someday. They are the church now. It's because if they're not the church now, they won't be someday. So this is what we want to develop, those youth leaders. And then we want to, as Annie and I were talking, we want to host a special concert or some other easy invite community event where we could just break the ice and get people in. And, and to have some kind of event, whether it's a concert or, I don't know if you remember Mike Hadley with the comedy improv night that we did, several years. Maybe it's something like that, but something that's just an easy invite, have fun together, and again, break the ice and just start a relationship, start the conversation with people. So those are our love God goals. And then love each other. It's all focused on small groups. The big idea, more groups, more people, more places. The one thing that Greg will tell you if you ask him, that the number one thing that people ask when it comes to joining a small group is, what day is it? It's like, it's not who's leading, it's not what are they studying, it's when is it? And so we need more groups, more people, more places. And I'm just thinking about it. If we've got all these people come in and we make a persuasive invite and we want them to come all the way into the community of the church, then we've got to have a target. We need at least, this is a minimum of 10 new small groups, because the answer can never be, we don't have room for you. That can never be the answer. And so we need to grow these groups. We need small group leaders who know how to ask, who know how to invite, who know how to include. There's one thing that I want to just put a little of a vision for, of something that we have maybe gotten away from in small groups, and maybe even just an expectation on small group leaders. But one of the things, in the history of Northridge Fellowship is that small group leaders really took ownership of this idea of an invitation all the way into the fellowship. And our small group leaders have been the people who are on the prowl in the atrium looking for people they didn't know who are new to church, and to invite them into their groups. And sometimes people would have to arm wrestle for families. And I would love to get that culture back where we're, I'll use the word aggressive, in trying to reach out people and opening up the door for them to participate. Now, that means we've got to up the game with our small groups and our small group leaders. And one thing I want to ask with small group leaders is, I want to ask you to be willing to be trained. I want to ask you to be willing to really take training and development in your role as a small group leader seriously. And to that end, Greg was just letting me know today that, and this is really, really cool, that we have a plan that is in place and is being developed for the training of our small group leaders. Cal's going to be a part of that, and I'm going to be a part of that because this matters. And honestly, if you want to be part of the group that I think really is the team that is going to make Northridge what Jesus really wants us to be, you want to be part of that small group leader team. I think that really in my mind, and when it comes to adult ministry, that is the core critical point of success, is right there in our small group leaders. So we gotta take it up a level, and so anyway, that's all I'm going to say about that. All right, love each other, and then, next slide, make a difference. We want to enhance and maintain a bi-monthly communication about mission opportunities. And here's the deal. Why are we doing this? Because we're doing a lot. And there's a lot that needs to be communicated. And I want to ask you, in the coming year, it's important that the members and the attenders at Northridge are informed and understand what these things are, so that we can see the spot where maybe our small group could jump in, or maybe it's just you individually, where you can jump in to support one of our ministry partners or one of our ministry endeavors. But this is really, really important. And there's bi-monthly, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because that means whenever you see a communication regarding make a difference, don't assume you've already seen it. All right? Because it's going to be changing constantly. And I just want to encourage you to stay up with it and ultimately to kind of pick where you're going to weigh in. And that's where these advocacy teams are still a thing. And we need to grow them, and we need more of them. All right, so I understand that Danny said we have like 4 of them that are just really in the beginning stages, but we need more of them. We've got 17 partners that we want to adequately take care of and be involved in their lives and in their ministry and encouraging them. And then to invite the congregation, the Mad Action team is a big part of this, of inviting the congregation into 4 outreach events that demonstrate compassion, that demonstrate love, that we really do love our neighbor. There's going to be 4 events. And when you see those events, I want you to pray and ask, Lord, have you given me one of the tools that's needed for this one? And then to bring it. I'm hoping this year we'll empty the toolbox. I'm hoping this year that every tool that Christ has given us, every gift he's given us will get put into play and called into action, in what we're doing. And whether it's some of these special events or just the base ministry of the church, which is so critical. So, in all of this, don't forget to volunteer for children's ministry and youth ministry, right? Yeah. So, because if the base isn't there, it's kind of like general fund. If the general fund isn't funded, then all those special things don't happen. But if the general fund is funded and if the base ministry is staffed, then all those other cool things start to just spill out, and they spill out of that. So those are our Make a Difference goals. Is there one more slide after this? Yeah, there we go. So the other thing is, I knew there was one thing I was forgetting. Because of where we are and because of the nature of everything, there's the idea is in making that persuasive invitation, it's like, how do we get into those neighborhoods? And I think one of the things that we're looking at is just increasing and using tactics of getting a team of people together that have a communications plan around social media, billboards, mailing, print ads, other means to help us, invite neighbors, of connecting with people who are new to the community. I don't know, maybe some of you, I'll pick on Angela and Josh here, moved into a brand new neighborhood, right? 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 6 years ago? Oh man, it was a while ago. That's right, because Calla was there for 2 years. But they moved to this brand new neighborhood. And something happens when you move into a brand new neighborhood where everybody is new. And that is everybody's open for relationships. And then last week, we baptized their next door neighbors. But that was partly because of their interactions with you. And that's why they knew about Northridge, is because they knew about Northridge through you. And so what we want to think about is, how do we get into these new neighborhoods? And maybe some Northridges are going to be moving into some of these new neighborhoods, where we can start to use that to leverage building relationships, showing love. And if we build relationships and we show love, who knows what the Spirit of God will do with that? And maybe there'll be more stories like Paul and Mariah. And we'll get to see that. So, oh man, it's good. It's good. I think that's the last slide, right? I'm going this by memory. Yes, that is the last slide, and I'm going to turn it over to Paul to talk about building some momentum.
Potato chips.
Yes.
Go eat some potato
Get
chips.
back to my potato chips.
Oh man,
Chips?
Terry ate them. Well, I've got to say, you earned them today, Pastor Ben. I've got to say, it is so good to be here, to be not just connected to Northridge, which I have been for 20-some years, but to now be a part of Northridge. It's kind of surreal to see my name on the new members list. I'm kind of, I realize it's not a total parallel to what Pastor Ben was talking about, people moving into the neighborhood and how they get exposure to Northridge, but I relate to it in that for me, for us, it was late last calendar year that we started really checking Northridge out. Again, I knew of Northridge, was connected to Northridge, but we started attending online and going back and watching playback of worship services and reading every newsletter I could find on the website and all the information, just trying to accumulate as much as I could from a distance to learn about what is this place, what is Northridge really about. And then that online research turned into some conversation and really prayer-filled exploration with Pastor Ben and Terry and eventually the overseers over the course of several months. And that for us, I'm spanning back late last fall into now, and it's been 3 months that I'm actually here. And I want to tell you something that I noticed from a distance and that I've really, really experienced being here for 3 months, and that is that there is incredible momentum in what God is doing here. There's just it's hard to even articulate, but there's a general feel of energy in the building, in conversations, as I'm meeting people, as they're talking about what they're doing and what God is doing and how they see him moving. There's this energy and momentum that you can quantify it in some things, but it's not really quantifiable. It's a feel thing. There's a feel of the momentum. There's an enthusiasm. When I've had the privilege of meeting so many of you and so many wonderful people in these recent months, as they're sharing, what they're sharing is they're compelled, they're inspired by what God is doing. And then there are the anecdotal examples of, oh, this happened, or have you heard about, or I'm really excited about. And those are specific things that help me, that drive toward that momentum. And then there's the data. There's actual data that depicts this momentum. And part of, as Scott and Pastor Ben and I were talking and praying about this afternoon, I got shoulder tapped to share this because I bring a different perspective being new. Someone who is from the outside and now coming in. And I've been in ministry for 21 years, and my previous context for 15 years. And so I'm brand new here, and I go, whoa, this is really exciting what God is doing. And it feels like, Scott put this picture up there, because I just kind of said it off the cuff. I said, it feels like I jumped onto a moving freight train. Like, it's moving. And I'm like, oh, okay. Wait, what? What are we going? Where are we going? What is this? Okay, it's June, right? That's summer, low-key. Nope, not at Northridge. Like, June is go time. Now, I want to share 2 slides that give you just some data pictures of this momentum. And as I mentioned, it's much bigger than this. There's the spiritual sense, there's the energy, there's the kind of enthusiasm, but quantifiably, there are a couple things that depict this. So this first slide is a 5-year attendance and giving trend. So the blue line, you can see there, that's our giving trend line over the last 5 years. And if you're not a numbers person, just look at the trajectory of it, right? Going up. We'll talk more about that in just a moment. The maroon bar graph is an overlay of our 5-year attendance. And you can see, well, COVID happened in 2020, right? I looked actually from a couple of annual meetings ago, the 10-year look back leading up to like 2020, and it was similar trend line. We had a hiccup in 2020, and now our attendance year over year is up 15%, and our attendance is up higher than it was pre-COVID. Our giving is up year over year 5% from last year to this year. That's exciting. That's really exciting. God is blessing and continuing to provide for Northridge. I want to zoom in on the attendance on the next slide as Andy scampers back to the booth and talk about our kids and youth. So let me just orientate you on what this is. So the first three sets of bar graphs are we look at ministry in kind of three segments of the year. So, and each color is a year. So the dark blue is 2020-21, maroon is last year, 21-22, and then the blue is this just prior year, 22-23. So the first segment is looking at in the summer, how do the last 3 years compare? Next segment is in the fall, how do the last 3 years compare? Then the third segment, looking at winter, spring, how do the 3 years compare? And then the fourth one is total year over year. That's unbelievable. This spring, we averaged 151 kids and youth per week. Our overall kids attendance is up 36% year over year. And Cove Kids specifically, Pastor Ben references, Cove Kids, which is what I'm a we now, so I can say we, what we just built and opened a year ago, Cove Kids is up 45%. That's amazing. That's why that space was built. That was the vision for it. So these are just two slides that give you a picture of the momentum. It's exciting to be a part of. And I want to say something, because I know, Ben, you can relate to this. Doug, I know you've been in ministry for years and years and years. There are seasons, right? God calls us as leaders at times into seasons of pruning. He leads us as his followers. And at churches, there are times where it will feel more like winter. But we are in a season at Northridge Fellowship of growth and incredible momentum. And the objectives that Pastor Ben and the overseers and our staff have been putting together and strategizing around is that we don't want to be satisfied saying like, oh, wow, look what's happening. No, let's go. Let's press forward. Let's keep on leaning forward. And the budget that we're going to talk about in a minute is our attempt, our discernment at how financially we can make that possible. So let me talk about finances now. I'm doing this on behalf of Ben Anderson, who's our treasurer. He is, as Scott mentioned, I got a text from him mid-morning that they won, and so they're in championship game. They're probably finishing up right about now. And so he would have shared this section. I get to do it because he's being coach and dad, which I think is more important ultimately. So here we go. So 22-23, here's a recap of the finances. We had a strong giving year. We came in, our final number at 101% giving to budget. And I want to say thank you. That is each and every one of you who give sacrificially, generously, together as we give. We resource the ministry that God has entrusted to Northridge. And this last year, we had a strong giving year, 101% giving to budget. Our expenses came in at 99% of budget, which is good. You never want to overspend your budget. Terry would want me to emphasize that's actually unusual that we're that high. We're typically in the 95% range. And there are a couple reasons for that with some things that we prioritize, and also Terry and I both being on staff for a couple months in overlap is a portion of that. That was something that the overseers felt was important to have that there. So where that lands us with a net there is our giving plus a little bit of just ancillary interest income we had. We're going to have more of that next year because our finance team is awesome. Adam and Andy. We have a surplus of a little over $32,000 at the end of this fiscal year. And Scott's going to talk in a few minutes about the recommendation of the overseers to put that toward our parking lot project. But you can see we're applause for that, okay. But this is the highest giving in the history of Northridge. It's amazing. So thank the Lord. Thank you for your investment in that. And there is also our designated giving toward, the people wrapping up their pledges toward the Surge Forward campaign, as well as benevolent giving. Okay, so here's where that positions us. Keeping the momentum and the trend lines in kind of the rearview mirror, seeing where we've been. Here's the budget that our staff has prepared. Our overseers have reviewed, and now our overseers, and I'm just the spokesperson, I guess, this afternoon on behalf of our overseers, that the overseers are recommending to you as a congregation. We're recommending a budget of $1.44 million. That's a 6.7% increase over last year. And we had quite a bit of conversation in the planning meetings of, well, what's the right number? And as we talked, I remember vividly one of the pre-planning meetings we had on a Wednesday night. We had talked for probably an hour or two, and then we said, okay, time to pray. And as we prayed, it was so cool to just sense how the Holy Spirit stirred in us. It became, it's not about setting a number, it's about fulfilling the vision. And so the total number, we didn't decide, well, let's try for 1.44 million this year. That'd be great. No, we said, what does it take in each area for us to fulfill the vision? And so our staff leadership team and our staff leaders, we worked together and then along with our overseers to area by area flesh that out. And so behind each of these is a spreadsheet or two of detail. And those things bubble their way up to those numbers. If you're interested in those details, Andy or I would be glad to go over those with you. They're available. But there's much more granular detail. The bottom line is that we feel this budget will give us the opportunity to continue to build on that momentum. There's a couple things to note specifically in our kids ministry, and youth is similar, but a little bit more in kids. We've budgeted an increase of about 25% in kids because we feel with the growth that we've seen and the growth that we're praying for and anticipating that that's going to be necessary. There's our Overseer Strategic Fund, which is something that enables our overseers to respond to the things as they occur. So some of those examples that Pastor Ben gave around the objectives and the goals that we have is we expect that there are going to be things that come up that we don't know about today, but we want to have the resources within reason, some resources to be able to step into and have some agility to respond to those over the course of the year. So that's what that $24,000 is. One note, I know this is something that I've been told has been a point of conversation and a value for a couple years is related to our mortgage and mortgage pay down. We've been building and building and building, and Lord willing, we'll be able to do more in the future, but for this year we've included, this is the first time we've been able to do this, we've included a one-time principal pay down on our mortgage that's budgeted for next spring, assuming that giving is a good place. So, and then our staff, I got to mention this just because this is where I live, is with the gals and guys that make up the staff of Northridge. We have a wonderful team. There's 18 of us. Actually, there's one position that we're looking to fill right now, but there's 18 positions, and that makes up 59% of our budget, and there's a cost of increase for that team as well. So that is the budget. I'm going to let you, Scott, I think you want to just make a comment, and then as he does, we're going to pause actually right now for any questions you might have specifically around the budget. So I'll wait here and let you say whatever you want to say.
Yes, this is a time, we've had opportunities over the last couple of weeks from the first release of the budget until now, and made some meeting time available and also just general open communication available in case anyone had any questions. Now is kind of the time to get those aired out if you haven't already had an opportunity to talk to one of us, Mr. David Foy. Yes, sir.
Just curious, what's the facility designed for 800 people, 1,800 people? The growth in the area, you've got, I think there's 4.3 people in each new house as an average. So there's 1,000 people in the area. What's our capacity and how do we fill this place up?
Let's do it. So the question is, how are we going to fit all these people, right? And there's a lot more detail to that. 4.3 per house. What's our capacity? So it's a specific answer in each area. So like with Braxton, our youth team, there's capacity for our youth space as it is currently. In our kids ministry, Jackie and I were actually just talking about this last week. Okay, in Cove and in Treasureland, with our current structure, where's our ceiling? And then there's a secondary ceiling where we go, okay, if we were bursting at the seams and we had to shuffle things around just with the space that we have and reconfigure either times or formats, then there's a secondary number that would require some adaptation. Once we clear that threshold, there's this, then we would need to replicate services here or look at church planting or another campus. Now, those last two things, I'm not dripping that as like that's strategically we're thinking that. We don't know, but that's possible. Here, probably the best, if you're thinking just in the worship space, Dave, like on Easter where we had 3 gatherings, our first one had some space. The second one, we literally did not have a single empty chair. We had a family come in that we had to split them. If you want to sit in this room, you two need to sit there, you need to sit there. And then we had some overflow space. And the third hour, we just had maybe, Greg would probably even remember this, not even 10 empty chairs in that third hour. So that's our capacity is at like the 360-ish per service. And we've talked about what that would look like. We don't have plans in place, but the initial thought would be that we would add an additional service if the need is there. Time slots and all that. No decision's been made on that, but that's I think a very real possibility and something that I know would be more work for us as a staff and require a lot of investment from many of you. But I hope we have that problem that we are maxing out our space, that we've got to replicate our programming hours. Yeah, we do have a ways. We're 60% right now, Pastor Ben said. I think in our Cove kids, that would be the exception to that, because as you saw that 45% growth, we actually are having conversations right now about the fall and how that looks, and some of the what would you call them, flex classrooms, is that the right term, that we have that are going to get taken over for Cove kids because they have to. So we're working toward that right now.
It's a great problem to have. It's a great problem to have. We're super excited. So do you want me to transition to that next piece? Other than say, I'm the chair, I can do whatever I want. No. That's not what I meant. I just wanted to say that from what Ben preached this morning to what he said about the vision for this coming year to how it's reflected in this budget, we are so excited. We are extremely excited about the potential for what God is doing, what he's already shown us. He's given us glimpses of something. And the potential to meet and to draw in and to minister to and to equip people in the body of Christ and to do it here. What a privilege that is to be able to do it right here and to have new friends, new ministry partners right here in our midst. And we're excited to, this is all about equipping, as Ben was preaching. It's all about that Ephesians 4 passage of he has placed us here in all the roles that we have and all the gifts and the grace that he's given to equip us, to equip the rest of us for the mission that he's given us right here. And that's what this is about. And for you folks in the room, you're the ones that are all in. The members of Northridge Fellowship are the ones that have said, I'm all in. I'm in this for the long haul, and I want to make it happen. And I want to serve it and do it with you. So that's my little pitch. You want to talk about the next part? Oh, sorry. One more thing. I was going to say, this is the recommendation of the Overseer Board as we look at the numbers and what the team has put together on how to use that surplus funds, those $32,000. That will be, he's going to talk about the entire project. It is an item on your ballot that you will vote on. You're not voting on the parking lot because that's happening. What you're voting on is that we're going to use the surplus funds from last year's budget to go into that project. So that's what I wanted to clarify.
Okay. All right, well, I'll talk about the parking lot. This was in the plans for me to share. We're going to do it. We're really excited about this. It's Pothole City, this whole, not whole alley, but really as you get south through the alley and then that whole section of the lot, it just needs to be done. And what's really exciting, parking lots don't really get people jazzed, But I've been through this in my previous context. We did a whole massive parking lot project at New Hope Church, and I inherited that in the planning stages. And so, just like this one, hey, it's great. The funding Pastor Ben mentioned has been a goal in the past. I'm really excited to share that we're 90% of the way funded for the parking lot itself already, and that's through the savings. It's been like here and there just trying to carve out, let's save that, let's set that aside. A surplus a couple years ago, the Overseer Strategic Fund, we had a parking lot reserve established. We've been really, really intentional with the costs around the Surge Forward campaign and project, so that when we got done with all the building things, we wanted to make sure that we had some funding from that to be able to leverage for this last bit to finish it off. And so you can see there between the parking lot reserve, our remaining surge funds, and then pending approval here this afternoon of the $32,000 approximately of this fiscal year's surplus, we'd have $212,000 to go toward the parking lot. And the parking lot and sidewalk is a $235,000 project. So that's a net of $23K that we need. That's only 10%. So we're 90% of the way there on the parking lot. Now, there's an additional layer that we want to recommend. Along with the parking lot is an opportunity for us to, one of the things that was talked about in the building phase of the Surge campaign was a playground that would be connected to that Cove Kids space that would enable us to, as a part of our weekly ministry programming, whether it's on Sunday night, Wednesday night, VBS, we have a homeschool partnership that meets here, in a regular programming to be able to utilize playground space, and then beyond that, to create a gathering place for young families, those families that make up that 45% growth in Cove Kids. And so the way that we've structured this is this, and the overseers wanted me to make sure that this is full disclosure, that doesn't feel like a bait and switch or a smoke screen. So here's the situation. We have 90% of the funding that we need to do the parking lot project. And our overseer team made the decision, this was last month, so just a couple weeks ago, to sign a contract and put down a 25% deposit on that $235K, because we needed to do that in May in order to ensure that the project got completed in this construction season. And so we've signed a contract with ACT, Asphalt and Concrete Technologies. Did I say that right, Mike? Mike works for them, which is great. And we're under contract. They're scheduled to begin work the Monday after VBS. Yay, so that's in 2 weeks. And, it's going to be several weeks, and there's going to be some interruptions, and that's fine. We'll deal with that. We'll park at the school. We'll drive around cones and things. That's just fine. But we're locked, and we put down our 25% deposit on that and signed a contract. We have the permits have been requested. We've got a little bit of, I don't want to land in the weeds too much, but we're working with the city of Rogers and Hennepin County, and the city is wanting/requiring us to move our entrance down a little bit south so it coincides with the elementary school. And the city is requiring something that the county has to authorize. And so there's a little bit of just working that through that we're in process of. So assuming that all comes together, that project will be getting done. So there's two things. First of all, there's a 10% gap between what we have currently in funding and what we need for the parking lot. And then there's an additional gap of money, another 15% on top of that for the potential playground. And so what we've determined as a leadership team is that we're doing the parking lot, and we're going to have an opportunity as a congregation to give toward, to close the gap on that last 10% for the parking lot contract. And then there's another, this is an estimated number of $50,000. It could be less, it could be more. I met with a firm here this last week. They do playgrounds for schools and churches and community parks. And depending on if you do wood chips or turf or poured in place, that's like the bouncy, spongy stuff, how big of a playground you have what type of fencing we put around it. That all varies the cost. We can do something called a community build, which would mean they would furnish it, give us the blueprints. We would drop our own footings in, and we would actually assemble it. So we could save 20% by doing that. Those details we'll all get to. We have the information preliminarily on that. But that will only happen if and when funding allows. And so the first 10% that comes in will go to finishing that parking lot contract this summer. And then, Lord willing, if funding allows, we'll be able to put in that playground. Now, the location of that, as we're sitting here today, is the southeast corner. So if you go out the south entrance, you look to your left, there are 3 diseased ash trees. They're coming down this week. The rest of the ash trees have been treated, and hopefully they'll make it. But those 3 are coming down, and it's about a 30 by 50 foot footprint is where the playground would go. And there's, if we get toward that, here there'll be much more information we can share about concept designs and all of that. But for right now, I'll just leave it at that we have that giving opportunity for us to give toward the lot, and Lord willing, beyond that to a future playground. Yeah, Sean. Both. Yeah, the fence is just for code, not for like locking it when the church is closed. It'd be something to be open. Yep. Yeah, so adding, the question, if you didn't hear, was about liability insurance and if that cost is included. It's a nominal increase on it. We've got a pretty broad umbrella liability insurance policy as a church. At New Hope Church, we added a second playground and our rates didn't change at all. But I haven't worked with our specific insurance vendor, but it's nominal because they're looking at, playgrounds aren't viewed as like a high risk something that we have here. Like if it was like a ninja obstacle course, it might be different. But because of the code requirements just to put the playground in are pretty specific, and that's part of why, like, you know, we're not going to go pick up a playground on the side of the road and just throw it in there. It'll be to school and community standards, and when that's in place, then if a kid breaks their arm, they break their arm. It's unfortunate, but we wouldn't see an exposure risk-wise, you know, as a church to that kind of a situation. Yeah, Steve. Grant money, yep. Yeah. My wife is on the PTA of our son's school, and they've done 2 playground projects, and so that team gave me a list of like 20 places to apply for grants. So we need to do that. And if any of you are interested in just grant writing and want to do it, it's labor intensive to do. A lot of them are similar in content, what they ask for, but we've got a batch of those things that we can pursue. They're less common for churches than for a school, but there are organizations out there. So a part of that, you know, 50,000. I would hope that a percentage of that would come from grants, but with the grants, we also are not afraid of them, but we have to be thoughtful because there are strings attached to some of those with things that would maybe inhibit the way that we do ministry. So we would rather turn down $5,000 than have our ministry hindered. But we're going to pursue and make sure we read the fine print before we sign anything. I think I'm done. Scott, thanks.
Oh, I was looking for my phone. It's right there. Excellent. Want to see how we were doing on time, and I know we're right up against it. So we've come to the part of the program where we ask you to find your ballot, and if you do not yet have one, please raise your hand, and someone in the ministry team will get you a ballot and that little pencil or pen or whatever you may have. So it's all on the same sheet of paper. And to review what we have to vote on, we have approval, hopefully, of the 2023-24 budget as presented. and you've had opportunities to ask questions of that. As recommended by the overseers, we obviously recommend approval. We require you to vote yes or no in approving the allocation of 2023 fiscal year surplus of $32,317 to be put toward that parking lot project as outlined. And then on the overseer team, there are 3 of us that are up for renewal in our terms, and each one of those is an independent vote. So at this time, yes, there's a question. Correct. What you're voting on for the parking lot is simply those surplus funds for the previous year's budget. We recommend putting it towards the parking lot, and that is strictly towards the completion of the parking lot. Any other questions? Good question, Dave. How many ballots do we each get? Vote early, vote often. Each member gets 1. But I'm glad you asked. Please cast those ballots now, and we'll be passing the baskets to place those in. And we have a team of overseers designated to count those. Just so you're aware, per the bylaws of the church, each one of these requires a majority of the members present at the meeting to pass. Simple majority. It'll take just a few minutes to do this, and hopefully we can have some results to share right away. Now's a good time versus me doing a song and dance of some sort. I don't think we want that. We could. Sure, we could. We could do a dance. No, that was stand up and stretch, all those kinds of things. If there's any more questions about the ministry plan or the goals for the coming year, any just general observations about that, we're open to field those questions. Yeah. The purpose of the playground. Fun. David, I don't know if it will be appropriate for seniors, but it will be handicap accessible, I'm sure, because that's per code. The intent is to, as Paul was saying, is an extension of the original vision for the new addition in the Cove Kids area. So in the same purpose as that, the intent is to be as welcoming as possible to those new families. And there's something about having that on the outside of your facility. It's just a big signpost that says, hey, we're family friendly, for one. And it invites those folks in. And it says that we care about you as a young family with young kids. As Paul was saying, there's a number of ongoing ministries and programs in this building all the time that could take advantage of that to help accommodate giving some nice, safe outdoor space to do some things with kids. Like I say, as we get, if we get to that point and we get to the point where we're talking about how it works and what it looks like, that'll all be shared as well. But at present, we really don't have a nice outdoor space at all to do things with kids outside. As the games leader, Pastor Ben, for VBS, Pastor Ben said, we don't have a great space out there. We take advantage of our parking lot spaces in the alley and doing things when we can. We cone things off, we cordon things. We have to have a lot of extra folks to do that safely. Something like this that's a nice, safe space that has the appropriate fencing and all those things simply allows some of our teachers and our volunteers to be able to do some things with kids outside they currently can't do, is another reason. And we want to make it welcoming for other events and other folks and neighbors that want to be here. Hopefully that answered your question. Yeah. Yeah, so the question Thank you. The question from Jason is that have we, as we're considering the population growth in the area and on the big picture view that we shared, do we anticipate or know of other church plants that may be coming, other campuses, whatever it may be, to accommodate that? How might that impact our plans and how we're anticipating projected growth here? Others may have a thought on that, but Ben probably has an understanding of what other plants and churches might be coming in that I'm not aware of. I'll have him share that in a sec. But my general sense is there's plenty of room for plenty of people, of people that it doesn't matter how many churches we can plant, that we'll need all of them.
Yeah, actually, it's an excellent question. And I am hoping and praying that more churches come in, other denominations come in, that we get more. Because here's the deal. It's like when the tide comes in, all the boats go up. And the best thing that can happen for us is a whole bunch of really strong, good churches really get started. I think right now, if I haven't done this math in a while, but if you add up all the pew space in Rogers right now, it's a fraction of the population. It's a real small fraction of the population. Even when you start, if everybody was doing 3 services a weekend, we are still at a very small fraction of the population. And like I said, I haven't done those numbers lately. I can't give them to you off the top of my head. And so, when I look at it, I actually view that as a positive if they will come do this. Because frankly, 1,000 homes in Corcoran. Now, and keep it in mind that other churches around are drawing from that and blah, it's always hard. Like Dave, your question about kind of like, well, what's the number? Well, there isn't a number because there's Cove, there's youth, there's, it's hard to give like, well, we could handle 200 more people or 400 more people or whatever. It's hard to give a number like that. But, when I look at, like, what were you saying, Dave? How many, like 10,000 people coming in? 4.3 Yes. When I look at 10,000 people, when I see 10,000 people coming in, I ask myself, is it unreasonable that Northridge by this time next year could have reached 200 of them? I don't care how many other churches come in. When we look at the sheer number of people that are coming in, man, if we reach 200 more people, that would probably be putting us at to the point where we would be starting to say we need another service. Is about where we would be. Because we're about 63%. We can get more chairs in there than we have in here right now. It'd be more like theater or like high school, the high school theater, compression on the seatings and such. But it's kind of, does that answer your question? Yeah. Dave.
There's a comment on that. From the real estate perspective, business I'm in, we get bulletins all the time when we're talking to different brokers. And everybody's familiar with the franchise church concept. We have one church in multiple locations. There are 3 that I'm aware of that either have purchased or are looking in the Northwest quadrant. Corcoran, Rogers, Dayton.
Mm-hmm.
3 of them. 2 of them have successfully bought and closed property. I didn't even know there were, but there are 3 in this area. And so they use demographics like a business, like McDonald's, to put another McDonald's in, right? So they use demographics, they use studies, and the Northwest quadrant was terribly underserved. I'm thinking specifically Eaglebrook got turned down in Corcoran, right by where Heidi and I live, for about 800 or 900. It was 800 or 900 parking spots. I don't know how many people. That's gigantic. That's like an outdoor theater or something.
Yeah, we have 160 parking spots.
So they got turned down. They got turned down at the intersection of County Road 101 and County Road 47. That northwest corner. They've been offered there's things happening. We're part of a lot of things happening. And we have to do our part for all those things happening. And
Yeah.
our part might be 200 to 400 people.
Right.
And there's thousands of others that need a home.
Right. Right. And honestly, just doing our part, again, without the Northridge label. We want to be a kingdom-minded church. And some of it is, yeah, we're just not going to be the flavor of some people. It's just the way it is. We're just not going to be their flavor. But did they have a good enough experience that they would say, you know, it's not my flavor, but I have a taste for something like that? And you know, will we make people thirsty for Jesus? That's what we want to do. And honestly, if we do that, we will reach a lot of people for Christ. You know, and to me, the only question is, you know, how are we willing to grow, change, and to do whatever we need to do in order to be able to adequately meet people's needs? You know, Jack and I had a great conversation yesterday. We were talking about VBS and just saying, okay, so what does it look like next year if we max out this year? Because if we max out this year, we are not going to do the same thing because we can't. Because if we maxed out, that meant that we turned people away. So we've got to do something different next year so that we can max out. So, you know, so the question is, okay, these are just ideas. This is not a commitment. This is like your financial advisor here. This is the danger of brainstorming and being an extrovert in public. But
on the wall.
you know, it may be that we do our regular program in the morning, and then we do another full VBS at night. And honestly, I mentioned that to Tom Sherman on the way out because since I picked on him, I had to go talk with him a little bit. And he goes, well, if you do, you got one more volunteer, because if you do it, I will volunteer in the evening. So we got number one. If we do that idea, Tom Sherman is in. You know, and so, but the thought being, okay, so we'll run 2 VBSs. We'll do another. We'll do a morning. We'll do an evening one. And you know, and I think we're going to need to think like that, and we're going to need to really be thinking about it. And I'll just be brutally open, not brutally, bluntly open. One of the reasons I'm excited to have Paul here is because he knows how to do bigger church. And he knows how to organize ministry in a way that as people come and as people grow, that maybe we would know how to really serve them, love them, incorporate them, always have room, to continually have room to invite them all the way into the fellowship. And, you know, I don't know, but I don't want us being unwilling to change to create a barrier to the thing that God might want to be doing. And so, you know, what does it really hold? I don't know. I guarantee you Paul doesn't know. You know, we don't know, but we want to be ready to flex and to move, you know, as the Spirit opens things up and as we get opportunities to do things. So,
Well, thank you.
do we have?
We have a result.
Results.
I have it in my head. It's all right here. Thanks, Pastor Ben. And just to reiterate that as we talk about growth, as we talk about momentum, it is not about Northridge. It is not about us growing for the sake of that. It is about for the sake of the gospel. And we are part of the body of Christ, universal. And whatever we can do, whatever he gives us to do, we want to do it with excellence. We want to do it with open hands and open hearts. Not holding tightly to anything, because none of this is ours. It is all his. So with that, I want to thank you for being all in on the mission God has given us. And we have universal yes on every question on the ballot. So thank you very much. That concludes our meeting. Thank you for staying a little longer than originally planned. I appreciate you guys' time. I appreciate you. Take some cookies home, Greg says, and have a blessed day. Thank the children's workers. They have hung in there for you. So go give them a big thank you and take them a cookie.